Hello, Celia here from Little Kiwis Nature Play. I am coming on at 11 o'clock to do Risky Play a deeper dive. So we'll just give it a minute or so and see if anyone's going to join live. But if not, it doesn't matter because this will be available on our Facebook page and you'll be able to watch it at a later time. So that's pretty cool. Okay, we're getting a couple of people starting to join. So I've started inside today, and that's because it's a little bit rainy outside, so I'm just hoping kind of in about 20 minutes we'll head outside and we'll have a look at some of the 6 elements of risky play. But you've probably seen on Facebook, I've been doing a few things. I've been making a few of these balls. If you haven't tried them, have a go. They're awesome, they're nice and light, and they're just a fantastic resource as a loose part, but also as a game that children can play or use to play with. Cool. So maybe in the chat, let me know where you're coming in from. I've also got my laptop open because it was hard to see the comments last time. So I thought this is actually kind of a bit techie for me, but we'll see if we can see the comments. I don't even know. Oh, yep, there we go. It's a little bit delayed, but that's all right. So where you're from, have you had a go at any of the wee crafty things that we've been talking about? Maybe put that in the comments. Hey Sarah, how are you? Good to have you on. Thanks for sharing earlier too. Fantastic. Got my husband looking after the kids again this morning just to help me out. Right, we'll start in about 30 seconds. Fantastic. Hi from Dunedin. Fantastic. Thanks, Kirsty. Onipoto, Te Punareo Play Centre. Fantastic. Thank you. Becky from Christchurch. Welcome. More from Dunedin. Warkworth, Thames. Fantastic. Dean and Jen back from Waitahi. Fantastic. Rama. Oh, cool. Welcome. Waitati. Have I pronounced that properly? I hope so. Brilliant. Hey, that's cool. Thanks everyone for coming in. So let's start firstly with what I think probably helps frame risky play, and that's understanding what the benefits are. Because if we can understand the benefits, then we can go, oh yeah, actually this is really important. So if we know the why behind anything, it really helps us out. So if you have seen on my website, and I've put it in the link, we've got a link to 5 pages worth of research. So you can download that for free. And on there I've got a little bit about risky play and risk management. And so a couple of the points that we're talking about in the research is that with risky play, it teaches children how to manage their own limitations, understand how their body moves. It helps them to learn how to manage risks. It looks at problem solving, overcoming fears and also anxieties. And I guess resilience is a really big part of that as well. And resilience is the ability to be able to recover quickly from challenging situations or from difficulties. So when children are engaging in risky play, they're often presented with different challenges. That might be that they are trying to climb up on something that's high for them, and first being able to get up there is a challenge. So being able to figure out how they move their body and what their body is capable of doing. So that's what we're talking about. So these benefits, it's great for when children are learning and teaching themselves how their body works, and just growing their brain, but it's also these skills transfer over to when they are a lot older. So it's not just about them learning how to climb high or go fast. It doesn't stop there. It's about that being able to assess a situation or assess the risks and weigh them up. So we can think about things like, I sometimes give the example of if we're going to purchase a house, when we're a bit older, and looking at our finances, how much money we have, what properties are available, and does it balance out? So it's being able to transfer into life situations as well. And I think that's a really important part. It's not just for childhood, it's actually setting us up for life and the challenges that we are faced with, and being able to kind of process in our mind what's going on and weighing it up and making a decision. And so that's essentially one of the reasons why risky play is so important. I guess the next question is, when should children start engaging in risky play? And maybe put some comments in the comment box. When are children meant to start engaging in risky play? How old do you think they should be? I wrote a couple of questions down here beforehand. I was like, what age should children start taking risks? What age do children start taking risks? And why do children stop taking risks? What is it that stops them taking big risks, or any kind of risks? Is there something that happens to them? So it's good to kind of think about some of those questions. For me, children start to take risks as soon as they're born, really, because let's fast forward a little bit, when they're starting to learn how to move their body, that's a risk to try movements. When they're learning how to sit, the risk is, to fall, or the harm that they can, be caused by falling. So by learning how to sit, that is a risk for them, taking a risk of learning how to crawl, learning how to walk. All of these things are, natural to children and babies. So babies, that's where risk-taking starts. They're taking a risk to learn how to do something. Hi, Kat. That's exciting, all the way from Canada. Just watching a few more people coming in. So risk-taking starts from babies, and it continues on, through as toddlers, as preschoolers, primary school, secondary school, and as adults. Maybe I could talk a little bit about preschoolers. So some of the risks that they're going to be taking is when they're starting to learn how to climb, climbing up onto something a little bit higher. Maybe they are, a risk could be going on a swing and that movement, or going out of the room when their parents aren't with them. So those are kind of risks to preschoolers. As preschoolers start mastering some of those gross motor skills, it then transfers into kind of the preschooler age, preschooler, post-preschool, and into primary. And they start extending some of those ideas. For example, my children, we've just hung a swing up from our tree, and what they've been doing, they start doing some big swings, and then they get bigger and bigger. And then they start putting something in the way that they can kick over, so a little bit of risk there. And then they start trying to swing as two people. So as they get a bit older, they just start pushing the limits a little bit more to understand where they can go with that. And that's them learning about what works, what doesn't. So yeah, I hope that's kind of helpful, thinking about it that way. One thing I want to talk about, and I talk about this a lot, and that is about our risk profile. So I use the term risk profile when I talk about our own attitude towards risk. And there's no right or wrong here, but as we go through life, we have all our different experiences ourselves, and we will be on a continuum. And our continuum, we have kind of risk-adverse people, or risk-adverse end, and a risk-taker end, and then somewhere in the middle. So when children are engaging in risky play, we need to be really aware of where we sit on that continuum. Because if we sit in a place, for example, if we are more risk adverse and we are projecting that onto the children, we need to ask ourselves, is that helpful or is that harmful for the children during their play? And this is quite challenging for some people. The classic example is if a child is climbing really high up a tree, and we are saying to them, oh my gosh, get down, that's dangerous, you might fall. That's our own personal feelings and our own risk profile. So what I encourage teachers, parents, anyone to do is kind of acknowledge that you are feeling nervous or scared about that child being up really high, and just reframing it, kind of changing your language a little bit and saying, gosh, I'm feeling really nervous about how high you are up in that tree. How are you feeling? And that changes the dynamics of the situation. I think you can see that a child's going to respond quite differently to an adult who's kind of owning their own feelings rather than telling them off or telling them to get down. So we use that a lot in our bush kindy and in any of our nature kind of programs. And what we find is children go, no, I'm pretty happy, or they might go, actually, yeah, it is getting a little bit scary, I might come down. But it could be even that you are noticing that the branches are getting really narrow and just going, I can see up there that the branches are getting really narrow. What do you think from your perspective? So having a communication, a conversation with them is really going to help. And it also just might help, calm yourself down a little bit by being able to own your own emotions. So that's something that we use. Let me know if you use anything similar, that kind of language around risky play. Let me know in the comments. And let me know what you think about that. Maybe where do you sit on that risk profile? Are you more of a risk-adverse person or a risk taker? And I just want to clarify that there is no right or wrong. I'm probably more of a risk taker type person, so I really need to bring myself in when I'm with children and my own children, just to ensure that I am managing the stuff that is part of my role, which is managing the hazards that they can't see. So when children are engaging in their risky play, my job as the adult is to ensure that there aren't any hazards that could really harm them, because they are responsible for assessing their own risk, and or their own risk-taking ability, and I'm responsible for assessing the hazards. For example, back to the tree, let's say there's one tree here and it's got nice grassy, flat stuff, flat landing, soft landing, and then over here we've got a tree which has got lots of big rocks and the branches are really far apart. So we can kind of talk to them about, I noticed that this tree's got these big rocks. Would that be a great tree to climb, or would this tree with a softer landing be better? So we can have those kind of conversations. Hey Nikki, how are you? Yes, you are a risk taker. So those are the kind of conversations that we can have with our children. Brilliant. I'm seeing a few risk takers coming in here. Fantastic. Maybe a couple of risk adverse. And like I said, there's no right or wrong. That is just who we are, but we just need to be aware of where we are on that, and if it's going to be helpful to share our emotions, or how we can change that so that children feel like they're being respected. Because it's really important to be able to let children engage in this kind of play, not only for when they're young, but also, as I said earlier, for their life, Brilliant. Hey, we're getting some cool stuff coming in. We're a mid-ground to risk taker, Rachel. Thank you. I think it's important for children to take risks, and I really love that approach that you just talked about. Thanks, Charlene. Brilliant. Right. I wrote a couple of notes. Anything else I want to cover? I think one of the key things is probably just trust that they're capable. I mentioned earlier that, they teach themselves how to walk, how to crawl, how to sit, how to run. They do that themselves through observation. They're very capable, and if we can trust them, that's going to form a connection with them as well. Connection is a really important part of our relationships with the children that we have and the children that we work with. So just make sure, you're trusting in their ability. I'll give you an example, a personal example here. When my son he must have been about 20 months, we were at a park with a group of friends, and there was a wee river there. And I have a word that I use with my children, danger. So if something's, dangerous, I would just say when they were little, when they couldn't talk, danger, danger. And I would just say that a couple of times to let them know that is something that they shouldn't be going near or shouldn't touch. Long story short, my son walked over to the river, and I stayed where we were with our friends, and I yelled out, "Danger, river, danger, danger," and said that a couple of times, and he kind of kept walking, and I was just like, inside, you've got that panic going, oh my gosh, what if this is the time that he doesn't respond? What if he goes and falls in? And I'm kind of trying to be calm, no, and then the other side of my inner voice is saying, no, trust in your child, and it's that kind of real way up, and we all have that internal dialogue. We know our own children best, by the way, and so I knew that my child understood this concept, and I trusted, and I said it a couple more times, and he had a good look. He looked at the river, and then when he was finished, he kind of came back. And yeah, it's just having that trust that they will be able to respond. And saying that, I'd set that up from quite early on. So you could have children where maybe you have been on more of the risk adverse side, and you are now kind of going, okay, well, how can I let this happen when my children are a bit older? And that's a really good question, and I think it's having conversations and owning your own emotions is really important. One other thing that we often use is, you can say, how are you feeling? Do you feel safe? Though that kind of language is really helpful. One other thing that I want to talk about before we head outside and look at the 6 elements of risky play would be how we support a child who is learning how to climb and jump and stuff like that. So in kind of the outdoor world, rock climbing, we use a term called spotting, and this is really relevant for what we're talking about now. So spotting is where you're using your hands to protect someone's head from a fall. So if someone's just doing a little bit of climbing without a rope, you kind of move your hands around where their head is, just in case they fall, and then if they do fall, you're there to protect their head as they fall. And I use that same principle with young children. So I try not to be too hands-on, i.e. like touching and supporting their weight while they're climbing. If they are capable, they will be able to get up there. If not, there will be a little bit of frustration, and that's okay, because that's when they can start to problem solve and try and figure it out. Or else maybe they are just actually a bit too small to be able to achieve that. But there is good learning through that. Back to what I was saying. So spotting, protecting. If my child is kind of climbing up a ladder and slips, I'm there to protect his or her head, but I will allow her or him to fall to the ground if that is what's happening. Feeling that gravity is really important. Being able to feel that, it kind of connects a few different links in their brain going, oh, what was that feeling? And they start to understand that if they don't hold on, there's this feeling that happens, and they might not like that feeling. So you will start to see them really holding on a bit tighter, or they will lean in so that they're starting to learn how to protect themselves from a fall. So it's a really cool thing to watch, especially for little kids. Something else I sometimes do with small children, because they don't understand left and right, I will, if they're trying something, I will tap their foot and go, here's your foot, tap their foot, and then tap where they could put their foot, okay? And that can just help them. Sometimes they just need a little bit of support. So that's that scaffolding that comes in when they're younger. As they get older, we start to just stand there and just be aware of the situations, managing those hazards while they experiment with whatever they're doing. And there will be a point where you can just totally walk away and trust that they've got it. So yeah, that spotting is a really useful thing, especially for little people. And the key is just to allow them to fall, but you can kind of soften the fall for them, or protect their head as they fall, so they still have that feeling. Cool. How would you encourage a child that is safe but won't budge? Walking in a park. Oh, I can't see the whole of that. I'll see if I can see it. Walking in a park in an area our son wasn't used to. He freaked out biking in a new area. Yeah, I think that he's feeling scared, so I think I would probably be going, acknowledge his feelings and just say, I can see you're feeling really scared. I'm not sure how old the child was, but something's gone on for him, so I'd be connecting first. That would be my main thing. I'm not a big one for pushing children outside their comfort zone. I believe that they know where their boundaries are, and they know when they feel confident enough to be able to step outside their comfort zone. So if a child is not ready or something happens and they just go, no, respect your child. He's 7 years old. Yeah, respect. Something's, he might be feeling nervous. If it's in the current climate, there might be something that's triggered with that. So just respect where he's at, connect with him, support him emotionally, and, find out, what do you need right now? What would you like to do? Hope that helps you. Fantastic. Right. And Rachel Pro is saying, I find it easy to allow my own children to take risks as I know them well and know their abilities. How do you find allowing children you may not know so well? Fantastic. Great question. And this is tricky. So in Bush Kindy, we have a lot of families that I don't know, starting at the start of a term, and it's watching. You need to watch that child. I often get a little bit closer initially if I need to, depending on the age, and just to see what their abilities are. So I'm watching to learn, and I will, have a couple of conversations with them, maybe just saying, oh, do you like tree climbing? Is that one of your things? Oh, kind of. You can get a really good understanding of where a child's at just by sometimes even just watching the way that they walk, but also what they're holding on to, or if they are calling for someone to come over while they are starting to tree climb. You'll be able to understand if they are someone who needs a bit more support, or if they might have had someone who's a bit more risk adverse in some of their outdoor experiences. Cool. Allowing freedom of movement as a very young child for them to master the skills themselves, calling sitting so they can get in and out of the situations independently. Fantastic. This allows them to trust in their own judgment and builds confidence. Brilliant. Yep, that's nice and succinct, probably better than what I've been yabbering on about. And Carissa said to Cheryl, he might just need to get familiar with the area. Would he have been more comfortable walking rather than biking? Yeah, so there's heaps of different things there, and that's another great point. Thanks, Carissa. Brilliant. Right, I think that is good. We are going to head outside and we're going to look at the 6 elements of risky play. So we are going to look at heights, and I'm going to just give some examples, some specific examples for each. So heights, speed, rough and tumble, I'm going to have a mind blank. Dangerous elements, dangerous tools, and hiding places. Fantastic. So that's our 6 elements of risky play, and that's from Ellen Sanseter, who is the person who came up with the risky play elements there. I don't think there's any other questions, so I'm going to I have a wee lovely thing that I had my phone in, so that I would be able to see me. Right, let us head outside. Oh, and the sun's coming out. How nice is this? Right, so I think the first one that we will look at is going to be, I think we'll do speed, because speed's pretty cool. So with speed, sometimes people think of, as adults, we probably think of, fast cars, that kind of thing, or going really fast on a bike downhill. But we also need to think about age. Like a baby just moving across the ground, that is speed. Quick question, is there a recording? Yes, there will be a recording available. It'll be just on the Facebook page afterwards. Thanks. So we have, speed for a baby can just be moving. It could be walking along with your baby. That is speed. For toddlers, it could be just running, or rolling down a hill. I keep looking at the wrong end of the camera. Rolling down the hill. It could be on your bike going along the road. It could be on a scooter. It could be a swing. A swing that actually has speed. So just around the back here, what have we got? We have a nice wee rope here that we've hung, and this is the rope I was just talking about before. The kids have been kind of coming onto the chair, trying to stand up on the back of the chair and swinging right out, swinging out. They've been doing it together, and then they've been kind of jumping off. So there's different versions of speed. Another thing is they've been climbing up on this tree here, and they've been jumping down from there onto the ground or onto bean bags. So again, that feeling of speed, that movement, that's all the kind of things that we're looking for. So we can recreate that in a garden space, if we have a bit of room. Or we often go out on our street. We have a lovely kind of slight incline on the end of our street, and the children often end up biking up and down there, which is really cool. So that's speed. Right, heights. And I've also talked a little bit about heights already, because in this tree and on the swing, when they come up, that's quite high. When they swing up, when they're climbing up the tree and then jumping down, that's quite high. We also have a slack line, so I'll call this a dangerous element, if you like, and that can be high. You can make that higher than it is. We use a slack line often at bush kindy, and it's amazing. We often have a rope up higher for the children to hold along and move along, but it's a really scary thing for children. In fact, we had one boy who, I think he was about 5 years old, and he was there with his mum, and we'd first put it up. He couldn't get up on the slack line initially by himself, and that was really frustrating for him. But what he did was he stood back and he watched some of the other children, and he watched how they got their leg up. It was a bit higher than this slack line, it was probably just above knee height, and he watched how they got up and how they reached up for the top rope, and he practiced and he tried, and eventually he got it. And then he was like, mum, and he really wanted someone there for support. So the first time his mum walked beside him, and she had to touch him, and he did it, and he was feeling nervous, and then she had to lift him off at the end. And then I kind of just tapped her on the shoulder and said, have a step back and just see what happens. And he, she just walked away for a bit and just watched from a distance, and he just kept practicing, and he got, he was feeling nervous, but by the end of a 2-hour session, he was just cruising back and forth, and he was so proud of himself, because at the start he couldn't do it, and he needed help, he needed support, he needed assistance, and it was just mastering of the skill, but also just that a risky play element. And as the children got better with that element, they started exploring it more. So they'd start bouncing on it, they would start pushing on the top rope and all falling back and forth. So once I've mastered something, they will find the next level of that risky play element. So yeah, just trust that the children will figure it out, and that they're capable, but you just got to give them the opportunity. Right, so other things from heights. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around the back, because heights, little people, they often, people don't think too much about, what is height for them. But what we have here is, it doesn't have to be that high. So this wee plank here, that can be quite high for a preschooler. And then here we have another one that our kids have done. They're a bit older, and so it's something like that, just something that they can climb up on or through. You could even stack a couple of the tyres up on one another and just climbing up and inside, and then there's a wee hiding place in there. So just thinking about things that that are going to be age appropriate, or sometimes I've been told that that's not the right word to use, but that's appropriate for the skill level that they're at. So thinking about that. So we've talked about heights, and that could even be going up a hill, onto a fort, onto a little mound, even climbing up on a trampoline, it's up higher, that kind of thing. So all those kind of things. So we talked about height, we've talked about speed, we started talking about dangerous elements. Even what I was just showing you before, my kids, they've kind of changed it a bit. This was all the same level, and they found their little old, push bike thing. What do they have? What are they called? Balance bike. And they were just, using it to go along the wood and then jump off the end with it. So that was quite fun. So, this can be a dangerous element used in multiple different ways. Something else that they had here, they've been kind of walking along and jumping off, so it's like a pirate ship, and then the pirate ship was the trampoline, and they'd come down and walk the plank, so that's quite cool. But this also, just on a side note, became a shop, so there was lots of loose parts and stuff on the top of there the other day. So just thinking, what are the dangerous elements that you can create? Something we did at Bush Kindy, we got an old fishing net and we cut it to shape and hung it between 3 or 4 trees, and it became this huge giant net that the kids could bounce in and roll down, that kind of thing. So there's lots of different things that we can think about that can be a dangerous element to bring into children's play or to offer them. What else? Hiding places. Yes, so what do we have over here? So because it was raining this morning, we did have a sheet first thing around here and for the last few days. So that's just like a little teepee that we have. And so that was a nice wee hiding place. And as some of you would have seen on our other video the other day, we have our hut in the corner. And this has been most popular, so we've just left it up. All it is just some tarps, strung up around, tied. It's fantastic. So we often create little huts in here. Other things that can be used, it could be trees or shrubs, bushes. It could be a table with a cloth over top of it, or a rug, that kind of thing. So just whatever it is, kids love it. Or something else that, just sort of this, they've put this up there, I think they were digging in there, but you could kind of cover that with a sheet, and that would also, work as some kind of hiding place. So these are kind of set up ones, but yeah, kids will find their own little hiding places. Sometimes it might just be in a little corner, just tucked away. It could be in a playhouse, that kind of thing, or under a fort. So just having those opportunities. Jen is saying, I have found that slides can create a lot of discussion between teachers. What is okay, what is not okay? Yes, so my personal philosophy on slides is they can be used any which way you want. Kids, once they've mastered being able to slide down, of course they want to climb up and navigate. Or we've got this awesome slide at our local park, and it's one of those real old school ones with big ladder up and then big slide down and then 2 big poles. I think it was last year my son mastered climbing up the poles on the side to get onto the top and then slide down. But they run up them, they slide down, they put everything, lots of bark on the bottom and smash through it. They're just experiencing with risk. They're figuring out what's possible, what they can do. I'm happy for my own children to do that and to just engage how they want to use it. I guess the biggest thing with some of the man-made playgrounds that we have, they are designed for a specific use. But what happens is when children have mastered that element or whatever it is, they then explore it and it can become actually dangerous. For example, a lot of the plastic playgrounds that you see in the parks, and they have that little fort and then a little roof thing. When kids have got a bit bored with it, they end up on the roof, and that can be quite high, and that could actually cause some quite significant harm. So we don't want our kids to cause significant harm. A few little bruises, bumps, scratches, even the odd broken bone's okay, but we really want to prevent that significant harm. So we do need to consider that and think about the ability of the children. If they fell from that place, is that okay? What other harm could happen if children are running up and down? Could anyone be pushed off the side of the slide? That kind of thing. So yeah, I think I can't offer an exact way to go on that, Jen, but I think just, having good conversations about that. If it's within school, you might end up having rules, or you could ask the children, what they want. One of the people I work with a lot, Leo Smith, from the Nature School NZ, she's really good at engaging the children in the conversations. So, going, okay, so this is a slide, this is kind of how it's meant to be used. What do you guys think? I can see you using it in this way. Could we create some kind of guidelines or agree on some principles of use for this slide? So thinking about that kind of thing. Awesome. Right. Hey, Anna Buckingham, how are you? So we are now going to talk about rough and tumble. So rough and tumble is actually a really good thing to be thinking about at this time, and that's mainly because it's great for getting rid of pent up energy, but it is also a really good release of stress hormones. So if children are feeling a bit stressed, being able to have a bit of rough and tumble is really helpful. And personally, we are using this a bit at home. We're probably having a good 2+ sessions of rough and tumble each day, and that's essentially because we can just see the children are getting a bit stressed. Not stressed, just starting to get a bit ratchety and a bit screamy and stuff, and we just offer hey, want to have a rough and tumble, want to come and play on the tramp. So how we're doing it at our house, we are using this as our rough and tumble ring, and yesterday I was in there, the kids actually brought their sleeping bags out. They were in their sleeping bags and I was jumping and they were just kind of flying around on their sleeping bags. So that's how we did that. Every now and then I jump down and jump on top of them and throw them around or bounce them and give them a wee tickle and lots of kisses and stuff, and that's how we've been doing our rough and tumble. We also have a few sessions inside. Other things I've seen is thinking kindergartens or schools is either having a padded room. That sounds a bit funny, doesn't it? But just having some padding down or a ring area, and just establishing some guidelines for that, so that there is some rules that people agree on, when to stop, when to go, and what the boundary is for that. So thinking about that. Maybe just put in the comments if you are engaging in a bit of rough and tumble with your children at the moment. I'd be interested to see how that's going and what you notice. Do you notice anything there? Fantastic. I think the last thing that we were going to talk about is dangerous tools. So my kids kind of get a little bit of free rein in the garage. I'll just turn you around here. So this is a little workbench we've got. They're often just grabbing the drills here, drilling things. This is the start of a rocket, just so you know. And this here is a helicopter. We've got saws, hammers, screws. They pretty much just get free rein to use that. I'm going to get my messy garage. And yesterday I was in the garden and my son wanted to do some cutting, so he found these and he's just been kind of helping me cut our hedge over here. Yeah, so he's just been trimming. So I think it depends on the age of the child. Scissors are a great dangerous tool. Spades, rakes. We're often just letting our children use what we are using. They love to be adults, really, and just play or work as adults do. So we teach them how to use them safely. We also have they have their own pocket knives, and so they're often whittling and doing stuff like that. I think that is probably about what I was going to cover. I wonder if anyone's got any questions that they want to ask. I've got a few comments coming in about using mats outside. There was a sock wrestling. That's fun. Pool noodle, sword fights. Brilliant. Jen Davey is asking if anyone has any good links that outline the benefits of rough and tumble. I think I've got a couple around Jen. Your son Ailing is loving rocket ships, which is basically covering the bed in soft duvets, picking them up, counting down from 5 and throwing them in the air and landing on them. Yeah, so kids love it. And they end up creating their own games with their own imagination, so it's fantastic. Brilliant. Rough and tumble tamariki, creating their own games, setting up their own rules. Yeah, tapping out. Brilliant. Yeah, and that's great. So we just have a simple safe word of stop. And when someone says stop, even if they're laughing, that means stop. Fantastic. So we have covered some of the benefits of risky play. We have looked at a bit at how we can support children through play or through risky play, and we talked about spotting. We talked about our own risk profile, if we're more risk adverse or risk taker. We talked about trusting in our children's abilities. And we have then just gone over the 6 elements of risky play in our outdoor setting. And yeah, I think that was where I was going to finish. If there are any last questions, please ask them. You can ask them after this is finished, and you know, I'll try and answer them, or someone else might also answer them. And yeah, the other thing is, the last thing before I go is we have the series. I've got together a couple of friends, and we're going to be doing a bit of a chat series, and that was we just wanted to be able to give something back. It's been a challenging time. Probably could have started a little bit earlier, but you know, better late than never. I think it's still going to be helpful because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, it transfers into post-lockdown. It's not just all lockdown specific, but it definitely will help through lockdown. So we'd love to have you join us. Have a look at the list that I just put out this morning, and it shares what the topics are. And yeah, you're welcome to come along to any. And thank you very much. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it. And yeah, we will catch you all again soon. Thanks so much. Have a good day. See you. Bye.